We're going to play a game called Try to Understand What the Fuck Kanye West is Saying. It's a fun game. I just made it up right now. He did an interview in France with Click TV where he was asked about racism, and he said this, quote, "I wouldn't call it racism. It's a form of discrimination or bigotry. Racism is a dated concept. It's like a silly concept that people try to touch on to either to separate, to alienate, to pinpoint anything. It's stupid. It's like a bouncing ball in a room with two cats or something. When you don't feel like playing with a cat, let them literally fight over the bouncing ball. And the bouncing ball has nothing, no purpose, anything other than that it bounces. That's racism. It's not an actual thing that even means anything. You know, it's something that was used to hold people back in the past, but now there's been so many leaps and breaking of the rules that it's like played out like a style from the 1800s or something. You know, the real true freedom isn't in the words. The real true freedom is in the opportunity. And that's what I'm saying. It's opportunities and the dignity of people. Who's to say there could be a cab driver who's more dignified than a businessman? Who's to say that because this guy has an apartment at the top of the Louvre or something, he's more important than this guy staying down? Because it's a matter of how you are, how you treat human beings, and how you display that heart to people, how you talk to every person. And for us, the more power that you have, the less you are a king. The more you are a servant, the more power you have. We are servants. We're providing service with this interview. Maybe people will be, I don't want to assume what someone will get from this, but it's when I figured out what my position is when the doors opened up. It's literally like unlocking a code. And when I'm knocking at the door saying, I'm a god or something like that, it's like, okay, well, God, stay out there. But if I come in and, mind you, when someone's like, hey, I want to come up, I'd like to sweep up your floor for you, everyone's like, all right, cool, come in. I need my floor swept. To position yourself as a servant, because that's all we are. We're servants to God. This is a Christian view of mine, you know. I think that's the best you can be. The lowest is the best you can be. What the fuck was that? Come on, Kanye. Kanye, what are you doing, Kanye? Kanye, what are you doing? Look, the thing that's so funny about this is there have been times in the past when he made some decent points where he was like, you know, racism, I think the more important thing today is classism. And I think that we oftentimes find ourselves in a situation where poor black people and poor white people are in a similar boat. And racism still exists, of course, but, you know, classism is this gigantic thing now as well. And that was, okay, great, good point. Here it's like just fucking word salad all day long. We got fucking bouncing balls and cats, and God is somehow thrown in here, and he calls himself a god or a king, and I have no clue what the fuck I can safely say I have no clue what the fuck he's saying. But here's the part that's certainly not right. The idea that racism doesn't mean anything anymore and it doesn't exist. I got that part out of the first thing here. And that's totally untrue. See, this is what's frustrating about people when they get a lot of money and they get out of touch. Is like, Kanye forgets that not everybody, especially not every black man, has the same experience that you've had in your life. See, you've made a tremendous name for yourself through the entertainment industry, and now you're in a position where you're privileged and, you know, you get viewed in this certain way from a lot of people. Whereas if you're somebody who's in Harlem right now, if you're somebody who's in inner city Chicago, or you're a black guy who went to a shitty school and, you know, you haven't had much of a support system there for you all along, the idea that, like, to those guys, racism is not a thing. You know, it's not a thing. It's never affected you in any way. I know because I'm Kanye. The fuck are you talking about, man? It's still alive and well. We've gone over so many studies that prove it. Don't get me wrong. Do I think classism is a huge issue? Yes, it's a tremendous issue. gigantic. But does racism still exist? Absolutely, it still exists. And it still exists in gross ways. Look at the disparity with drug crimes, for example. White people sell drugs more. Black people are more likely to get arrested for selling drugs. Black people and white people do drugs at a similar rate. Black people get arrested 4 to 6 times more often for it. If you put a black name and a white name on a resume, all the exact same information and job history, the white name gets 50% more callbacks. So there's no other explanation other than race there. There was the great YouTube clip that went viral of a white kid breaking into his car and recording it, and cops literally drove by, looked at him, didn't care, just drove by. They just assume, like, I guess he's trying to get his keys out of there. He's using the machine to, like, break into the car. People would walk by, not bat an eyelash. Then his black friend did it. People immediately called the cops. The cops showed up and were physical with the guy, threw him against the wall, put the handcuffs on him. So it was a social experiment that perfectly showed a lot of the differences in the inherent assumptions that people make when it's a black person versus a white person. I think ABC News did a similar thing with bicycles, where a white guy would try to unchain a bicycle. Nobody thought it was suspicious. When a white girl did it, people went out of their way to help her unchain the bicycle. When a black guy did it, and he was struggling trying to unchain it, people thought he was stealing it immediately. Again, these are things that can only be described through the lens of racism. But the thing is, a guy like Kanye is so out of touch now, he forgets that there are people who have different experiences from him. And what does he do instead? He talks about bouncing balls and cats and how he's God, but of course he's humble. I'm a God, I'm a Jesus. But of course, I'm just a servant to everybody else. I have no ego at all. Please, Kanye. You ever have people on your side from time to time on certain issues and you're just like, go on the other side, because you're not really helping us. Oftentimes, that's what I feel about Kanye.